Lust has always been one of humanity's most powerful forces. It disguises itself as pleasure, excitement, or even love. At first, it feels like a spark that makes life more thrilling. But if you look closer, lust is rarely what it pretends to be. It promises satisfaction, yet leaves you emptier than before. It tells you that you're in control, while in reality, it's the one pulling the string. The Stoic philosopher Seneca saw lust not just as a private weakness, but as a destructive fire that can consume a person's entire life. To him, lust wasn't limited to physical craving. It was any desire that overwhelms reason and enslaves the mind. And once you give in to it, you begin to lose your freedom, your judgment, and even your sense of self. In this video, we'll uncover how lust works as a silent destroyer, how it takes away your freedom, how it corrupts the soul, and why Seneca believed that unchecked desire is one of the greatest threats to human dignity. By the end, you'll see lust for what it really is. Not a path to pleasure, but a trap that leads to weakness and misery. Lust is often misunderstood. Most people think of it as purely physical, an intense attraction, an overwhelming urge, something biological that's hardwired into us. And yes, biology plays a part, but Seneca pointed out something deeper. Lust is not about the body, it's about the mind losing control of itself. To the Stoics, there's a difference between noticing beauty and being consumed by it. There's a difference between appreciating attraction and being ruled by it. Love, for example, can be noble. It can be rooted in respect, affection, and loyalty. Lust, on the other hand, reduces everything to a single dimension. It sees the body, but not the soul. It seeks pleasure without responsibility. It wants satisfaction without wisdom. Seneca warned that lust is dangerous because it grows quietly. At first, it feels harmless. A glance, a thought, a desire, but left unchecked, desire multiplies. The more you feed it, hungrier it becomes. And soon the person who thought they were free is no longer in command of their own will. The Stoics believed that true freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you feel like. It comes from mastering yourself. If your desires control you, then you are a slave, even if the chains are invisible. Lust is exactly that kind of chain. It whispers promises of pleasure while binding you tighter to weakness. Seneca even compared lust to a sickness of the soul. It clouds judgment and distorts values. When desire grows too strong, you stop asking, is this wise, is this right? Instead, only question becomes, how do I get what I want right now? And that's when the fall begins. Consider how lust shows up in everyday life. It's not only about sexual cravings. It can also appear as an obsession with status, possessions, or attention. In every form, lust is about chasing more beauty, more pleasure, more validation. And yet it never truly satisfies. It just leaves you wanting again, like a thirst that water cannot quench. That's why Seneca saw lust as one of the greatest destroyers of peace of mind. Because if you can't master desire, then desire will master you. Nowhere is the power of lust more visible than in the way it steals freedom. At first glance, lust feels like liberation. You follow your impulses. You take what you want. You enjoy life without restriction. But this is the illusion. What feels like freedom is actually dependency. Think of the person who can't go a day without chasing physical pleasure, or the person whose mind is always distracted by fantasies, never fully present in reality. These aren't examples of strength. They are signs of bondage. The craving commands them, not their reason. Seneca put it simply, if you cannot say no, then you are not free. When lust dictates your choices, you start to act against your own best interests. You waste time, you waste energy, you waste focus. You give away your power in exchange for moments that vanish as quickly as they appear. And the more you give in, the harder it becomes to stop. History is filled with tragic examples of this. Kings who lost empires because they couldn't control their passions. Leaders who destroyed their reputations through reckless indulgence. Ordinary people who sacrificed relationships, careers, even their own dignity, because desire was stronger than their discipline. One Roman emperor, for instance, was infamous for letting his lust cloud every decision he made. He neglected his duties, indulged in excess, and became a prisoner of his cravings. Though he sat on the throne of Rome, he was not truly free. He was chained by his own desires. Seneca saw these examples and reminded his students, a person enslaved to lust may appear powerful, wealthy, or successful, but in truth, they are weaker than the poorest beggar who has control over himself. Because external freedom means little if you are not free within. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone throw away years of progress, trust, or happiness in a single moment of lust? That is the cost. It's not just about physical acts. It's about trading lasting peace for temporary excitement. And here's the subtle trick lust plays. It convinces you that you're in charge. You tell yourself, I choose this. I can stop whenever I want. But every time you repeat the cycle, the truth reveals itself. You're not choosing, you're obeying. For Seneca, the greatest victory in life was mastery of the self. And lust, more than most temptations, makes that mastery difficult because it attacks both the body and the mind, pulling you away reason and into impulse. The person who overcomes lust doesn't just resist temptation. They reclaim their freedom. Lust doesn't just steal freedom. It also poisons the soul from within. Seneca believed that the greatest danger of lust was not simply the actions it led people to commit, but the way it reshaped the inner character of a person. When you give in to lust repeatedly, you begin to train yourself to value pleasure over reason, desire over wisdom, impulse over discipline. You slowly replace the voice of virtue with the voice of craving. And once the soul is corrupted, everything else begins to decay. A person who cannot resist lust soon struggles to resist other vices too. They give in more easily to anger, greed, envy, and laziness. Why? Because the ability to say no to yourself is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. But the more you surrender, the weaker you get. Seneca saw this pattern clearly. When someone indulges without restraint, their inner defenses collapse, and soon they are ruled not just by lust, but by every passion that storms into their heart. Think about the way lust distorts judgment. A person may know that chasing a desire is unwise, that it risks their reputation or their health, that it may harm people they love, and yet in the heat of the moment, all of that knowledge is brushed aside. The craving takes over. Reason, the very thing that makes us human, is pushed into the background. Seneca called this slavery of the mind, the moment when passion overrules wisdom. To him, this was worse than chains or prison, because the person was still walking freely, but no longer truly free within. And it doesn't stop there. The corruption spreads into how a person sees others. Lust turns people into objects. It blinds you to their soul, their humanity, their depth, and reduces them to a body, a thrill, a tool for your own pleasure. This doesn't just harm others, it diminishes you, because if you cannot see the full value of another human being, you slowly lose the ability to see the full value in yourself. Your relationships lose meaning, your connections lose depth, and everything becomes shallow and temporary. This corruption of the soul creates emptiness. At first you think giving in to lust will fill you. You think it will satisfy the hunger, gnawing at you. But the truth is, it never does. The more you give in, the more restless you become. The soul, Seneca said, is not nourished by indulgence, but by virtue. And when you replace virtue with lust, you starve yourself of the very thing that brings peace. What remains is an endless cycle of craving and regret, a chase that never ends. The ancient Stoics compared it to drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Lust doesn't cure loneliness, it deepens it. It doesn't solve restlessness, it multiplies it. And over time, it corrodes your self-respect. You begin to sense that you're not living at your best, that you're weaker than you could be, and that knowledge eats away at you from within. This is why Seneca warned so strongly against the unchecked fire of lust. It consumes not just the body, but the spirit. But lust's destruction doesn't stop with the individual. Like a stone dropped in water, it creates ripples that spread outward, touching everything around you. Relationships are often the first casualties. When lust dominates your reef, people stop being loved and start being used. Partners become disposable, affection becomes shallow, and trust shatters easily. What could have been a bond built on respect and loyalty turns into a fragile arrangement held together by desire alone. This is why lust often leaves people feeling emptier after chasing it. Because it creates connections that don't last. You might feel powerful in the moment, but afterward, there's only guilt, emptiness, or even shame. The relationships built on lust collapse quickly because they lack the foundation of virtue. And the damage goes beyond relationships. Lust eats into focus and purpose. How many dreams have been abandoned because someone was too distracted chasing their cravings? How many hours wasted? How much energy drained? How much potential left untouched? When the mind is consumed with desire, it cannot concentrate on wisdom, discipline, or long-term goals. It becomes scattered, always pulled toward the next temptation. The Stoics saw this as one of the greatest tragedies. Not that people lacked talent or opportunity, but that they wasted it by being enslaved to passions that gave nothing in return. Then comes the cost to self-respect. The more you surrender to lust, the more you know, deep down, that you are not in control. And that realization hurts. It makes you doubt yourself. It erodes your confidence. Because how can you truly trust yourself if you cannot resist even the smallest of temptations? This is why lust destroys more than pleasure. It destroys pride in oneself. And when self-respect is gone, people spiral even deeper, because they feel unworthy of living different. And perhaps the most destructive ripple of all is the cycle it creates. Lust is not satisfied by one indulgence. It comes back stronger, demanding more and more, until nothing feels enough. You're left chasing an illusion, believing the next time will finally fulfill you, but fulfillment never comes. Instead, the craving grows, and you grow weaker. This endless cycle is exactly what Seneca wanted people to escape. Because life is too short to waste chasing desires that never bring peace. In his writings, Seneca often reminded his readers that true strength is not found in conquering others, but in conquering yourself. He believed that mastering lust was one of the highest victories a human could achieve, because it restored clarity, dignity, and freedom. To him, overcoming lust was not about rejecting beauty or joy. It was about refusing to let those things dominate you. It was about learning to enjoy life without being consumed by it. So when you feel the pull of lust, remember what Seneca taught. Ask yourself, am I choosing this, or am I obeying it? Am I in control, or have I handed control away? The honest answer to those questions can reveal more about your freedom than anything else. And freedom, for the Stoics, was the highest prize, worth more than pleasure, more than wealth, more than any temporary thrill. The story of lust doesn't have to end in destruction. Seneca did not write about these dangers to condemn humanity, but to awaken it. He believed that while lust is powerful, reason is stronger, that every person lies the ability to turn away from slavery and reclaim the dignity of freedom. And the path to this freedom, though not easy, is simple. It begins with discipline. For Seneca, discipline was not about denying yourself every joy or living in cold rejection of life. Instead, it was about moderation, about training yourself to take pleasure in the right measure, at the right time, without being ruled by it. He saw desire as something that should be kept in its place, like a wild horse that can be useful when guided, but dangerous when left to run free. Discipline is the hand on the reins. Without it, the horse drags you wherever it wants to go. With it, you decide the direction. But discipline alone is not enough. The Stoics also emphasized reflection, taking time to examine your own mind, your habits, and your choices. Seneca advised his readers to review their day each night before sleep. Ask yourself, where did I give in to weakness? Where did I stand strong? Where did I let desire trick me into thinking it was freedom, when it was really slavery? This daily self-audit is not about guilt, but about clarity. The more aware you are of your patterns, the more power you have to change them. Another step on this path is substitution. When you remove lust from your life, you cannot leave an empty space. That emptiness will cry out to be filled, and if you don't guide it, it'll pull you back into the same cycle. Seneca urged people to fill that space with higher pursuits, with philosophy, with wisdom, with goals that elevate rather than degrade. When your mind is occupied with purpose, there is less room for destructive craving. The energy that once fed lust can be redirected into creativity, learning, service, or building something meaningful. It is also essential to practice silence and solitude. Lust thrives in noise, in distraction, in environments where your senses are constantly stimulated. When you step back, when you spend time alone in stillness, create space between yourself and your desires, you begin to see them more to the war, fleeting impulses, not commands. Seneca often reminded his students that it is in quiet moments that the soul regains its strength. Solitude teaches you that you can be whole without external pleasures, and that realization breaks the illusion of need. At the core of all these practices lies self-mastery. This was Seneca's great vision for human life, that the strongest person is not the one who conquers cities or commands armies, but the one who conquers himself. To master lust is to prove that your reason, your dignity, and your will are stronger than your cravings. And this mastery is not just about avoiding destruction. It is about opening the door to a life of peace. Imagine waking up without being pulled by constant desire, without the restless hunger that never seems to end. Imagine being able to look at beauty, admire it, and move on without feeling enslaved to it. Imagine building relationships that are deep and lasting, because they are based on respect and virtue, not shallow indulgence. This is the life Seneca envisioned. A life where the soul stands tall, unshaken by temptation, free to pursue wisdom, love, and purpose, without distraction. And yet, Seneca was not naive. He knew that lust is one of the hardest chains to break. He knew that even those who strive to live wisely will stumble. His advice was not to expect perfection, but to expect progress. Every time you resist, you strengthen your soul. Every time you reflect, you sharpen your awareness. Every time you choose virtue over passion, you reclaim a little more of your freedom. Over time, those small victories add up, and the chains grow weaker. It is important to remember that lust is not simply about the body. It can disguise itself as ambition, as greed, as the endless hunger for validation. Whenever you feel the restless need for more, whenever you cannot be content with what you already have, lust is there in disguise. Seneca's wisdom applies to all forms of excess. He urged his readers to find satisfaction in simplicity, to realize that the happiest life is not the one overflowing with pleasures, but the one content with little. Because at the end of the day, what we seek is not pleasure, it is peace. Pleasure is fleeting. It flashes brightly, and then vanishes, leaving you emptier than before. Peace is steady. It does not depend on circumstances. It does not fade when the moment passes, and peace is found only in mastery of the self. This is why Seneca warned so fiercely about lust. Not because he hated desire, but because he loved freedom. He wanted people to understand that life is too precious to waste in chains. He wanted people to see that dignity, wisdom, and virtue are worth infinitely more than any fleeting thrill. And he wanted people to realize that the greatest power we have is not over others, but over ourselves. So ask yourself, what do you want your life to be ruled by? Cravings that grow stronger the more you feed them, or a mind that grows calmer the more you master it? Do you want to live as a slave to impulses, or as a free soul guided by reason? These are the questions that Seneca left behind for us. And how we answer them determines not just our relationship with desire, but the quality of our entire life. The choice is always yours. You can let lust dictate your actions, steal your focus, corrupt your soul, and leave you restless. Or you can rise above it, choose discipline, practice reflection, pursue higher goals, and taste the freedom of self-mastery. One path ends in emptiness, the other ends in peace. And maybe that's the challenge Seneca would leave us with today. To test our strength, not in chasing what everyone else chases, but in resisting it. To prove our freedom, not by doing whatever we feel, but by refusing to be ruled by what we feel. To live, not as slaves to lust, but as masters of ourselves.